Welcome back to Manga Storian's Complete Story Series. Today, we will be covering Berserk Chapter 334, 335, and 336. I hope you guys enjoy, because I really like doing this series. When we last left off, Rickert and Erica were staring at the giant walls of Wyndham Castle, and Laban said that was Falconia. People live out their lives inside of that castle in complete peace. As they approach the gates, Rickert's eyes widen, seeing the giant walls in the city behind them. Erica asks Rickert, "You've stayed in this place before, right? How lucky." And Rickert tells her, "It wasn't like this." As the carriage passes through the streets, everyone looks at the crowds of people, all happy without a single care in the world. But as another cavalry passes by on its way out, Rickert says that those soldiers are Kushin. Jarif tells Laban that they just received word from a medium that there is a pack of trolls getting ready to attack the refugees. They're on their way now to stop them. And then as he goes on, he says that they're going to be surprised to see Kushin soldiers here. It's because they owe a great debt to the Hawk. Because of that, they have dedicated their lives to serving their new master. The soldiers all begin to move along, and two old men driving the carriage seem to state that they seem so scary. Laban tells them that there is no time to be fighting against each other. That's the truth. Soon the carriage stops by a large building, and inside Laban begins the paperwork to provide Rickert temporary housing until they find him something more permanent. Also, he'll be provided with a letter of recommendation for the blacksmith and craftsman's guilds based on his performance on their way here. Another recommendation will be to have an audience with the Hawk himself. They'll send word ahead, so drop by the castle tomorrow afternoon. Rickert takes the paper, and as he stares at it, Laban says, "You wanted to see Griffith, right?" Rickert thinks back to what he saw on the Hill of Sword and says yes, he would. And a short while later, the two men ride the carriage to the location specified by Laban. As soon as they stop, a woman comes out clapping her hands, stating, "Listen up! It's too soon to be sitting down." Everyone looks up to see Luca, the woman who watched over Casca long ago, telling everyone that she knows the journey was perilous, but they are just going to need to stand up a little bit longer. Luca then directs everyone into their lodgings, and Pepe tells the two old men that they can bring their horses into the stables. The men begin to guide their horses in, and Pepe yells to the old man inside that they have some new arrivals. The frail old man inside says that they can leave the animals to them, and he swipes his hand in the air, as if directing the horses where to go. The horses listen, and they begin to walk into the pen set up for them, and that is because the old man is Deaba. Erica watches in amazement at the sight of the horses, and Pepe tells her it's cool, huh? The old man can talk to animals. But just then there's a loud scream, and Erica looks over at the other barn asking what was that. The two drivers state that it was a monster, that's what, and Deaba walks over to the other barn telling them that he knows where the horses go, but don't ever go near this one. Luca tells Erica about how once they are done eating, they're going to go take a bath, and she'll take her somewhere nice. And after spending the day with Luca, Erica comes back home tired from her journey, and Rickert tucks her in. But there's still something bothering him. This place is too grand. At the very top, Griffith is in there. The next morning, Rickert begins to walk up the large pathways to the castle, stopping to state that maybe he should have taken a carriage. Sturdiness will only get you so far. But as he gets closer, he notices that the castle itself is different architecturally from the rest of the city below. This really is the Hawk's castle. He looks over the castle and a voice calls out to him asking if he's Rickert. He looks at where the voice came from and he sees General Owen. And he says that he is the head of the castle guard. And Rickert runs over asking, "General Owen?" And Owen tells him that they could have sent for him and no need for formalities here. He just wanted to show his respect to someone from the old band of the Hawks. They were their kingdom's saviors after all. As Owen guides Rickert in, he tells him that they'll have to wait a moment while the Hawk finishes with a ceremony. Rickert asks what kind of ceremony, and when he looks around, he sees a giant room with people inside and several caskets spread throughout it. Before he could say anything else, the pontiff calls out to everyone that they have gathered here in the house of God to give those blessed a departure. Owen then says that this is a funeral for those wishing to say their final goodbyes to those who died on their way to the capital. Even though it is a mass funeral, the highest-ranking priest performs the ceremony personally. Even Her Highness Princess Charlotte attends the services. But most importantly, so does the Hawk. Rickert begins to call out to Griffith, but Owen tells him that he needs to be quiet. He knows how he feels, but he must restrain himself for now and watch. The room begins to fall silent, and everyone looks up at Griffith as he holds out his hand, calling on all of the spirits of the deceased to return to their bodies. Soon, all of the spirits begin to take form, and all of the loved ones that the spirits left behind begin to say their goodbyes. Rickert watches, asking, "What is this?" And Locust tells him that it is the other side of death. People are witnessing what lies beyond the edge of life. Rickert stares at Locust, and then he stares into his eyes, and he thinks to himself that he can already tell that this man is not human. Locust goes on stating that death is not at the end. The self continues to exist beyond it. Do you know the phrase, divine rights of kings? A high spiritual rank links legitimate king to the land, guiding the realm to prosperity. It's something that often occurs in myths and legends, and many royal families claim it to be true. However, in 100 stories, an entire doctrine will lose their power when presented with what the hawk is doing right now. As the cathedral begins to fall silent, everyone watches Griffith performing his ceremony. And Locust tells Rickert that it'll be some time before it is over. If he wouldn't mind, he would like to speak with him privately, seeing as how he used to be an old member of the Band of the Hawk. Locust begins to lead Rickert away, stating that he used to be one of the Hawk's feathers. This is something in which he really should know about regarding the present Hawk of Light. As the two leave the cathedral, they travel on horseback down a long, narrow bridge, leading to a large, dark mass, and Rickert begins to ask, what is that mass? It would seem that the common soldiers are too scared to go near it. Locust tells him that it is Pandemonium, the den of the war demons, the Hawk of Light's bodyguards. Rickert thinks back to Zod and Irvine, and Locust says that it would seem that he knows them. But there is one question that he has, and that is, why does he request an audience with the Hawk? Perhaps to renew an old friendship, or maybe to gain a patron to help establish himself. Or could it be to question him about what happened beneath the black sun of abstract time? Rickert pauses, hearing him know about the eclipse, and asks how did he know about that? And Locust tells him it is a simple deduction. A feather of the former Band of Hawk that lacks a scent of the brand, which means for some reason you were spared. It would only be natural to know what happened that day when all of your comrades disappeared. Rickert says that he already knows the answer to that, and Locust asks, is that so? Then, do you wish to hear the answer from the Hawk in a tone of remorse? Because the look in your eyes lacks being tainted with hatred. Before Rickert could respond, the two come upon the doors to the den, and Locust says that before he could wish to ask or not, he should see the beak and the talons of the Hawk. While the great doors begin to open, another set of doors opens, and Erica, along with the other children, begin to look inside. Just as the Hawk begins to make out something, Old Man Diaba appears and scares the children off, telling them that they should stay away. However, as Diaba chases the kids away, he stomps and wobbles as he falls to his knees. Erica looks back and sees him as he groans trying to get back up and runs back asking if he is okay. Diaba asks if she's planning on running around the barn while he can't move, and Erica says actually she hadn't thought of that. He then tells Erica to watch very carefully and starts to wave his hand around. After a moment, he bops her on the head with his cane, and suddenly she spins around asking what did he do. He starts laughing, telling her that she'd been caught, and now she will help out around the barn. Later, after cleaning up the last stall, he asks if she's tired, she'd better not be going near that barn again, and Erica tells him actually she had fun cleaning up. There's something that she wants to give him before she leaves though. She runs out to the carriage and begins to rummage through the boxes, and she finds a mechanical leg brace and hurries back to give it to Diaba. Once it's on, Diaba stands up, patting his foot on the ground, stating that it is a fine device. While the two go on, Luca calls out to Diaba, telling him that if he had been having issues with his knee, he should have said something. He snubs his nose, and he turns away, and Luca says that even still, it's unusual for him to let someone get this close to him. She looks at the brace and then says that it's a neat little contraption. Does it belong to Erica? Erica smiles, stating that Rickert made it, and he can make just about anything, like explosives and repeating bow guns and a bunch of other things. The brace is something that he made for her father shortly before he passed away. Her father was an amazing blacksmith too, and he once made this sword so huge that it was bigger than a person. Diaba starts to laugh, stating that a sword bigger than a person would be useless. No one would be able to wield such a thing. And Luca thinks about it and says that maybe it could be done. And Diaba scratches his beard, stating, just maybe. Erica then shouts that someone did wield it, and both Luca and Diaba stare at Erica. Back in Pandemonium, two giant beasts begin to fight off against each other in an arena, and while the demons cheer, Rickert stares, asking, what is this? Locust leans down, telling him that they were war demons. They naturally like combat, so whenever a monster is captured, it's brought here to train. That, or it could just be that they're hungry for blood and slaughter. Rickert watches as the two monsters go back and forth, and just as one pins the other one down, it bites into its opponent's stomach and begins to pull out its entrails. Rickert says that this is like a scene out of hell, and Locust tells him that these are supernatural soldiers who are the Hawk of Light's beak and talons. Rickert shouts, asking in exchange for these monsters, he took the band of Hawks, and Locust stops him, stating that they're human, originally. They are refashioned by casualty and extraordinary obsession. These are apostles. If the Hawk had not been leading them, they simply would be indulging in their own desires, doing nothing but harming the world of men. The Hawk had given brutes like himself a place where they belong, and even now, the people here only ever wield a sword to protect mankind. Even if death is inescapable, people no longer fear it. They see for themselves that the soul is immortal. No great king in history has ever been able to achieve this. That was until the Hawk brought that light, and with him, Falconia. And that concludes where we're going to be ending today. I hope you guys have been enjoying this series. We're back on track again. Please subscribe to the channel to keep up to date as to what's happening in Berserk. I'll see you next time right here.